And welcome into the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeart Radio app. My name is Rob Sanders. We are at game day for the Clemson Tigers. We're going to break down some of that game in a moment. But first, I want to head out to the hotline and welcome into the program Mr. Andrew Jones from Tarheel Illustrated. We're going to preview South Carolina's matchup with North Carolina in the Duke's Mayonnaise Bowl tomorrow. Andrew, how's it going, my friend?
Rob, how you doing, man? It's good talking to you. It's been a little while, so it's always good to chat with you, my friend.
Yeah, it's great to have you on the program with us today, and let's get with it, sir. Where are the Tar Heels on the opt-out / COVID-19 front for tomorrow's game?
They had a couple kids transfer and one who opted out who's preparing for the NFL draft, a cornerback named Connor McMichael. He actually started out at Clemson, so some of your fans may recall him. He started most of the year at corner because Storm Duck was hurt. So he's not playing, but they haven't lost anybody else. And we talked to Mac Brown today. He didn't want to get into specifics. They've had their final COVID test, and he said, as far as players testing positive, it is, and I quote, minimal to none, end quote. So if they've had anybody, it's probably been no more than a couple of players, and perhaps not ones that would really impact what they do. So he said that they're cleared, they're ready to go, they're ready to hit the stadium tomorrow and play a game, and I guess they hope that the Gamecocks show up as well.
You know, what when you look at North Carolina and the guys that are going to play, what do you think kept Sam Howell and the other potential NFL guys from saying, you know what, I'm just going to prepare for the draft?
I can only go by what they said, and you could read into it however you want. They had 4 prominent players opt out last year, and it certainly affected them in the Orange Bowl against Texas A&M. These guys said that there was unfinished business. They didn't want to leave their teammates hanging. Sam Howell said, I'm not the kind of guy that opts out. I'm on this team. We have one more game to play, so I'm going to play. And somebody asked him a couple of weeks ago if he thought that could actually help him with respect to the NFL, because GMs will say, hey, boy, that guy's a real baller. Sam said he didn't really think it mattered. I mean, he is the player he is. Everybody saw he was tough as nails this year. So I think more than anything, there's a culture element in the program. These kids wanted to see it through. They wanted to leave them with a victory so the program could continue the sales pitch it's had the last couple of years. And that would be a lot more difficult to do coming off a losing season in year 3 under Mac Brown Part 2. So I think there were a lot of reasons that went into it, and pretty much what they said is what it was.
You know, this Tar Heel team, when you and I met at ACC kickoff at the beginning of the season, you know, they were ranked, the preseason rank was 10th in the country. In your opinion, when did it seem to slip away from that, from those echelons to where they ended up?
Well, Mac said today, reemphasized today, that he tried telling us they weren't that good. And he did downplay certain aspects of the team. I don't remember him saying, hey, I don't think we're a top 10 team. He basically said, we'll find out if we're one when we go to Blacksburg. And in 3.5 hours time that night, we saw that they weren't a top 10 team, and they never did anything to change our opinion of that. So I just don't think that they didn't have a lot of skill on offense in spite of their numbers. And they were as productive as they were because Sam Howell is an incredible player and almost ran for 1,000 yards himself. If you take away the sacks, he ran for almost 1,300 yards. I think that they weren't explosive at receiver outside of Josh Downs. They didn't have anybody that could really take the top off the defense. They didn't have a really good conventional ground game in the first, 4 or 5 games. It got a lot better, and it's actually been excellent in the second half of the season. And to be perfectly frank, the defense was nowhere near as good as people thought it would be. The defense went through multiple games in which they had 2 quarters where they were gashed in every conceivable way. They looked unprepared. They were in pre-snap chaos. There was a play against Georgia Tech when that pedestrian offense put 313 yards in the second half on Carolina. There was a play where Tech had the ball at the 3-yard line. Jeff Sims took the snap and ran it in. And when he got in the end zone, he turned to the officials. He didn't celebrate. He turned and kind of looked like, gee, does that even count? because Carolina had 13 players on the field, and none of them were set up and ready to go when the ball was snapped. So he kind of figured, well, his natural football instincts was, that play's not going to count. That's a do-over. But it did count. They just weren't ready. We saw that a lot. We didn't see it as much the last few games, but the defense just grossly underachieved based on what the stated mission of the program was. And I think that more than anything else is why this team is 6-6 and playing in a bowl game on a Thursday morning at 11:30.
You know, and you mentioned that it was a season of highs and lows, and folks in our chat room are talking about the loss to Georgia Tech. That's kind of a head-scratching loss. Then they had a loss at home to Florida State, a team that didn't make a bowl game as well. What adjustments were made to help salvage the season?
Well, you know, the Georgia Tech and Florida State games, I point out a lot because it's not just that they lost to those teams, they got destroyed. Georgia Tech beat the snot out of them. They beat them worse than anybody else did. And Carolina was awful that game. Sam Howell was sacked 6 times. They had no conventional ground game. And the defense was gashed by I say pedestrian offense, but I'm being kind.
Yeah.
And then with Florida State, the Seminoles went in there with no momentum at all. Questions at quarterback. They weren't really sure, who they were at all. And there was talk about, boy, can this coaching staff survive this season? Can Norvell survive year 2, given the quick trigger they had with the previous regime? And Carolina kind of revived Florida State's season because they were in the middle 2 quarters of that game. Florida State had, I believe, 352 yards of offense. Yeah. That goes back to what I was saying before. Virginia, their quarterback set a passing mark ever against North Carolina and broke it by 78 yards. Miami in the second half had 338 yards of offense in that Van Dyke kid's like his second start or something. Okay. Second start against an FBS team. There were a lot of games like that where teams just gashed them. They gashed them on the ground. They gashed them throwing long. They gashed them throwing short. And a lot of it was Carolina just wasn't ready. They weren't prepared. Even after Georgia Tech, Jeff Sims was an ACC kickoff. So you knew he was one of the faces of the program. He didn't play the week before when Clemson beat Georgia Tech, but Carolina thought there was a chance he could play. The Georgia Tech media said that he was available. Jeff Collins said that week he was available, and Jeremiah Gemmel said after the game that they didn't prepare for Jeff Sims. But I do think a lot of that stuff got cleaned up late. They had an open date after Miami before they went to Notre Dame. And they really have been a much better team since then. They've looked more organized, especially on defense. The run game, conventional run game on offense has been a lot better. They were in the game with 2 minutes left in the red zone at Notre Dame. They beat Wake Forest. They went up and took Pitt to overtime on the road, and they had NC State beat until they had a meltdown the last 2 minutes in Raleigh. So those are all good teams, and they either played them toe-to-toe or they won. So they think that's who they are now. We'll find out tomorrow if it is, because I think South Carolina will be a more difficult opponent than some of the earlier ACC teams that they played.
I have to ask about that NC State game, and I'm being polite, but man, they completely blew that game. We're up, 9 points with 2 minutes to go. Does Coach Brown have maybe a hard time motivating his team to get up for this game against South Carolina? You mentioned the 11:30 kickoff on a Thursday morning after, the taste in their mouth from going to NC State, and they should have won that game.
Yeah, but I think going back to your first question, that's the other thing that goes. Those guys said that Jeremiah Gillum, Tamon Fox, and Sam Howell, and Ty Chandler to a lesser extent because he's only been there 1 year. They all said they didn't want that to be the final taste in their mouth. I mean, they wanted to exercise that demon. And I do think this team is motivated about that because they actually played really well that game. After a blocked punt led to a touchdown right away for State, Carolina was the better team for 54 minutes outside the first few and the last 2, but you got to be better for 60 minutes to win, especially when you're a team that has little room for error, and they're clearly a team that has little room for error. So I think that is motivation. They want to get back out there and have winning a game, no matter who they play, no matter what the margin is, winning a game being their last experience together, not what happened in Raleigh. Because you were being kind. That was a disaster. It was a disgraceful way to close out a game. Everything that was wrong with this team during the course of the year showed up in those last 2 minutes. So if you wanted to know, hey, what was wrong with the 2021 Tar Heels, just show them the last minute 57 and rally, and there you go.
Yeah, tough loss there for the Tar Heels. Andrew Jones from Tarheel Illustrated joining us today, previewing the Duke's Mayonnaise Bowl for tomorrow. Can you tell us a little bit about that North Carolina offense? And, we went into the season thinking that they've got the golden arm quarterback in Sam Howell, but North Carolina wants to run the football. Am I correct?
They do, and they did last year too. Yeah, they led the ACC in rushing this year, and a lot of that's Sam. Sam was sacked 45 times this year, which is incredible. And that took about 300-something yards off of his rushing total. He right now he's at around 900 yards. So do the math. Sam was excellent running the ball. I didn't think it was the ideal way to go about moving the ball, but they had no choice at times. They had no choice but to just tuck it and run, roll out and run in situations where if it's not there, tuck that thing in and run, Sam. Just be the tough guy. But the conventional ground game got a lot better as the season went on. They had a lot of success against NC State, which is really good up front defensively, really good linebackers, arguably the best defense in the ACC. A lot of people think it is, in spite of stats. So they got better, and I do think that tomorrow the mission will be run the ball. Because really, if you look at South Carolina, the numbers tell you, well, they're a lot better against the pass than against the run. And so Carolina sees that. And they know they have Sam, but the sack issue is what it is. South Carolina can put pressure on them, and they can put pressure and create picks. That has been a little bit of an issue for the Tar Heels this year. So if they can establish the conventional ground game earlier and then use Sam intermittently, I think that they would ride that to the end if they can. But that we always look at what needs to happen in a game going in, Robbie, as you know as well as I do. Stuff always happens. It changes the course of a game plan. So if Carolina has to adapt and then throw, I think that's better than starting out throwing and then having to adapt and run. So that is the plan. And if it works well, they should be successful.
On the defensive side of the ball, when you just look at the scoreboard, man, they've given up a ton of points. Do they have some bright spots that have gotten better as the season has gone on?
I think they're more organized. There's not as much pre-snap chaos. Jeremiah Gilmore, their middle linebacker, he's the kind of kid that when Jay Bateman was at Army, the defensive coordinator, Gilmore's the kind of kid that he would have been coaching there. He'd have been like at West Point. He would have gotten into West Point. He's a really smart guy. When we talk to him, you just think all the time, well, this guy's a future coach, right? He's a really smart dude, and he's football smart. But in pre-snap, so often, his head wasn't even pointed toward in the direction of the ball, his nose anyway, because he's trying to get guys lined up over and over. There's a ton of communication, various layers of communication. Some people believe it's too much. And the way offenses are these days with the spread, you've got about 12 to 14 seconds to go from a play ending to be ready to play the next play. And when you've got 3 or 4 levels of communication going on, and you're constantly moving the defense around, you're going to create problems for yourself. And I think that was a major issue. I think they got better at it. They say that they simplified some things a little bit, simplified the communication, maybe simplified some of the responsibilities. And my understanding is that they've continued to tweak this month. So they might be far more in base tomorrow than we've seen them all year long. If so, they should play more to what their talent base says that they are. And I think through the 12 games this year, you don't have to be a football rocket scientist to know that they didn't perform to what their talent said they should have performed.
Final couple of questions with Andrew Jones from Tarheel Illustrated. Of course, go to tarheelillustrated.com. And I watched some of your podcast this morning as I was getting ready for today's interview, and you guys do a good job with that, and a nice breakdown of what to expect from North Carolina in this matchup with South Carolina. I have to ask you about how Mack Brown is dealing with the transfer portal. We know that he's brought a couple of transfers in, but is that something he's comfortable with moving on as we're at the point? I know Dave Clawson called it the trash portal, which I thought was hilarious. But do you think that Mack Brown's going to be somebody that uses that to help plug in holes where he can't quite fill them with recruiting?
I think so. More than being filled with recruiting, it's more where is that position group and its point of development. So, yeah, I think so. He didn't like it at first, and they brought in Ty Chandler from Tennessee last January because the Orange Bowl, with Michael Carter and Javonte Williams opting out of the Orange Bowl, it allowed the staff to see what they had. They didn't have much. So they went out and got a kid, and he ran for 1,000 yards. So Mac's like, hey, this was a good experience. And he looked around and said, if it's good enough for Nick Saban, then why isn't it good? And if it's good enough for Ohio State, shouldn't it be good enough for us as well? He's not going to go grab 15 guys. He's going to bring in kids that he thinks can start because you don't want to upset those rooms. But you got to win football games. His job is to win football games. And if there are 6 players in a position group that haven't developed as they expected and hoped, then you have to bring in someone that can help you win games. So they brought in 2 kids so far. I think they were both needs. I wouldn't be surprised if they go grab a couple more kids. I wouldn't be surprised if they get a running back. I wouldn't be surprised if they get a wide receiver. Because even though they have talent at wide receiver, there's only one proven guy in that room, and that's Josh Downs. The rest of the guys haven't really blossomed. So I wouldn't be surprised if they do that. But he's comfortable with it because he wants to win. And he says, look, my job's to win. My job's not to worry about feelings or anything like that. But I do want to protect the room. But at the same time, I got to win games. So, yeah, I think we'll see more of that. I don't think he's going to throw a bunch of lines out there, but they're going to be strategic in how they do it. And 2 already. They didn't get one till January last year. So, Rob, I think we'll see a couple more before the January workouts begin in about 2.5 weeks from now.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the transfer portal works out. I got to get I retweeted your tweet last night about what happened with NC State. The only term I can use is despicable. I mean, those young men lost Christmas and everything else. And according to Dave Doran, they were kind of kept in the dark. I mean, what can we do better, in your opinion?
Well, I can tell you this much. UCLA deserves the score it's getting, and the scoring should reach a little bit broader than just what happened yesterday. Let's go back a couple of weeks ago. UCLA had Alabama State in uniform in Pauley Pavilion. They called off a basketball game. The next night, they did the same thing with women's basketball. And then that weekend, they were supposed to play North Carolina in Las Vegas. And Carolina's basically sitting on a tarmac in Raleigh waiting to take off to fly to Vegas, but they were only going to do it if they could play a game, right? So my understanding, and just really from afar, it's pretty obvious UCLA has a communication issue. And they did not communicate properly to the Holiday Bowl or to NC State. They didn't properly communicate to the CBS Sports Classic or to Kentucky or North Carolina, who Ohio State had already backed out because of COVID, but they let people know in advance. They didn't toy around with it. So I think UCLA deserves a lot of scoring. And whatever they get, they deserve. I feel bad for NC State and those kids and just the fans. I mean, that's from San Diego. The media that went out there, having to fly out on Christmas Day and all that kind of stuff. I know that there are bigger issues in the world, certainly, but this is still something that could have been avoided, could have been handled a lot better, and hopefully people will learn. So whatever happens with this Duke's Mayo Bowl, hopefully both teams are ready to go play. North Carolina says they are. Mac Brown said there hasn't been communication directly with South Carolina about it, other than maybe some of the team doctors. Shane Beamer said today that they're ready to go. So hopefully there are no surprises. And if there are, and one of the teams has to alert the other, they do it as soon as they possibly can.
Yeah, hopefully that all shakes out. But and my final question for you, I don't want to put you on the hook here, but your prediction for tomorrow's game.
Yeah, well, if you saw the podcast, I actually usually don't give a prediction in the podcast, but I'd already made it. I think UNC is going to win this game. My understanding is that there have been some injuries and opt-outs with South Carolina, so they're not going to have a complete complement of their roster available. And I just think that Sam Howell and some of these veterans, they're playing in this game for a reason, and they're going to play well. And they might have a little more burn in them to win this game simply because because of all the stuff that they've said. A lot of times I think older teams maybe don't play well in mediocre bowls because because it's sort of a anticlimactic way to end their season. But given what happened versus NC State and what these kids have said, I'm going to take them at their word. I know that's a risk sometimes in our profession, but I'm going to take them at their word. I think they're going to play well and they'll be ready to play. And I think South Carolina's quarterback issues is going to hurt the Gamecocks. That'll be, if they have to score points to beat North Carolina, a lot of points, then I think that might be an issue for them, even if North Carolina's defense plays as bad as it's played at times this year.
Andrew Jones from Tarheel Illustrated joining us on the program. Andrew, tell folks where they can find all of your great material that you put out on North Carolina. And of course, I know you guys are right into it as soon as football wraps tomorrow. You're already doing hoops season, right?
Well, yeah. Oh, yeah. I've got a flight to Boston on Friday for a noon basketball game in Chestnut Hill. So I've been to all the basketball games already. So, yeah, TarheelIllustrated.com. Follow us on Twitter at Heel Illustrated. There's no S in there after the L. Heel Illustrated. And our YouTube channel is simply Tarheel Illustrated.
All right, Andrew, man, thank you so much for joining us on the program today, man. And hopefully everything goes well for you with your travel and all that you're heading out this week.
Absolutely. Appreciate it, Rob. Thanks,
right,
man.
Thank you, sir. All right. Andrew Jones joining us there. He picks the Heels to win tomorrow. Of course, you can check out his full podcast on that. He breaks it down player by player. So we'll see how that works out for North Carolina tomorrow. I think that South Carolina is undermanned. Of course, Coach Beamer had some comments, and we'll have those when we come back. In addition to what Dave Doran said. Wow. I'll play that for you when we come back. This is The Rundown. You're listening to Fox Sports Radio 1400. Andrew Jones is a good writer there, Mike. You should learn some stuff from him. I don't know what he thinks about the Hall of Fame, though.
Our 2021 iHeartRadio Music Festival, the ultimate once-in-a-lifetime music event, is coming to the CW. The biggest superstars in music finally step back.
I'm not sure what you're shocked about there, Mike.
Featuring Coldplay, Billie Eilish, Dua Lipa, J. Cole, Khalid, Darius Rucker, Cheap Trick, Journey.
I'll be right back.
Music Festival. 14 acts, one stage, one television network.
Watch tomorrow and Friday night at 8 p.m. on Columbia's CW.
Special people make the Midlands a special place to live. They're the CEOs who make our businesses thrive. Find out who they are as we showcase CEOs you should know. Every Tuesday and Saturday morning between 7 and 8 on iHeartRadio.
Reach your 2022 workout goals with Carolina Specialty Fitness. We have the largest selection of bulletproof treadmills, exercise bikes, home gym systems, and more from premium brands like Life Fitness, Matrix Fitness, Hoist Fitness, and Land Ice. Carolina Specialty Fitness has shipments arriving daily, so you can find the perfect equipment for you and your budget. Reach your New Year's goals today. Step up your workout game with Carolina Specialty Fitness. Go to CarolinaSpecialtyFitness.com. Hi, I'm Alicia Kaufman Clinton. My daddy, Billy Kaufman, opened Kaufman's Meat Plant at our second location in 1955. My family still works hard every day to ensure fresh quality cuts of beef, pork, and poultry. How about a case of T-bone, ribeye, or New York strip steak? Cut to order at Kaufman's Meat Place. Just look for the signs near the intersection of US 1 and I-20 in Lexington. Call us at 356-0076 to place your order. Kaufman's Meat Place, and you want the very best money can buy.
Let a radio ad from iHeart Ad Builder reach the customers that will make 2022 a successful year for your business. Create a customized ad in just a few clicks to get your commercial on the air at iHeartAdBuilder.com.
Hey, Gamecock fans, no matter if you're going to the bowl or going out on the town, Gamecock Tradition will keep you in style. Now available online, Gamecock Tradition takes a beach bowl trip. Just go to GamecockTraditions.com and place your order. Ships are also available in stores there. Make it Carolina Christmas. Come to Gamecock Traditions and get classic open goods at pretty fresh. Buy one, get the second, half price. Or get long sleeves, get for $20.
I agree with Jimmy. Comrade is day drinking again.
Liberty Mutual Insurance Company presents.
You're not even witty anymore, Mike. You used to be witty. Now you're just a turd. You really are. Maryland uniforms are trash, by the way.
Charmin Ultra Strong just means better. Enjoy the go with Charmin. Welcome back to the rundown. Follow Rob on Twitter at Rob Sounds Good.
Welcome back to the rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Let's go out to the phones, 803-978-1832. As we bring in to the program this gentleman here, Big Barney Ross. What's up, brother?
Hey, I've enjoyed the show so far, but I'd like to point out something that Mr. Jones failed to mention. Okay, the 6 wins that South Carolina had, he didn't contribute any of that to the flu. Now, the main reason I called in is to talk about comparisons. And now I say potato, you say vodka. See, the comparisons are pretty good. Now, Kentucky's playing Iowa. 10-3, Kentucky's 9-3. That's a pretty good comparison. Clemson, not so much. They're playing a 7-5 Iowa State. Iowa State has got about as much chance of beating Clemson as I did of keeping my house in my divorce. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
I just want to get your take on this. Do you think somebody on that bowl selection committee got their palm greased like a fifth wheel on a tractor and trailer? I think Clemson got a pretty good draw there in Iowa State. But I'll get off here and listen to what you have to say. Thank you.
Appreciate it, man. I don't know exactly. I think it's all comes down to how things were as far as bowl pecking order. I think Iowa State's a pretty good team. They were a preseason top 10 team in the country, but we'll see how that works out. Let's go back out to the phones. Welcome into the program.
Hey, Rob, Scott from Hartsville. What's going on, bud?
What's up, Scott? How are you?
Doing good. Getting ready for the new year.
I figured you would be in Orlando.
I am in Washington, D.C. with my 3 daughters and my wife.
I'd rather be in Orlando. No offense, sir.
Well, my daughters, I got 2 daughters who live in D.C., so ain't much of a choice.
There you go.
But do you think that some of these teams like UCLA should have to reimburse, NC State for some of their expenses?
I think there's going to be something done where some of the travel of some sort is going to go. I don't think, put it like this. I think NC State should get their bowl payout and UCLA shouldn't because of the way that UCLA handled it. If they had COVID-19, that's fine. I'm not mocking them for that. I'm mocking them for the way that they communicated, which was the term we use here, hot dog water. I mean, they could have done a better job of saying, look, this is what we're dealing with. And they haven't. And I blame that on the athletic department, and they should get hit in the pocketbook for it. And that way they don't do it again, because this is going to continue to happen until somebody stands up to them and says, look, what you're doing is wrong.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you look at Texas A&M. I mean, they canceled their game, but 10 or 11 days out from even the game being played.
Right, and they could have had a better opportunity to get somebody else to play in that bowl game instead of making NC State miss Christmas and everything else and travel out there. It was just not very good the way they handled it. No,
it's not. What's your take on the game today with Clemson?
I've got a preview. I'm going to give you some stuff on that in a little bit, but Iowa State losing their top running back, I think, is going to be a problem. They do have the capability to play some pretty good defense. They run 3 safeties out there that are kind of interchangeable. They can move all over the field. So I think that the passing game is going to be kind of non-existent for both sides, in my opinion. It's going to be who can run the ball, and I think Clemson's got better running backs, so I think they're going to eke one out today.
Yeah, and South Carolina tomorrow seems like they've lost a couple more players. It'll look good for them.
Well, and with that game tomorrow, I think it comes down to we don't know who's out with COVID. And I know that you're not supposed to put out there who it is, et cetera, but I don't know who's going to be out there for South Carolina tomorrow. I have no clue.
I mean,
so
yeah, I mean, it really seems like Mac Brown wants to play this game. He's excited about it.
He does.
I mean, he's got a great class coming in.
Right, and to be honest, I think Shane Beamer's excited about it too, and he would like to go into the offseason with, look, we won this game over North Carolina, and I'm sure that people will say that was a top 10 team at the beginning of the season, and look at what we did at the end of the season with them. So I mean that narrative can definitely be out there, and getting a win over a coach that has a national title. I mean, those don't come along very often. So I'm sure Shane Beamer's jacked for this game too.
But is it what's his name? Is it Kingsley? He's opted out, right?
Yeah, Inibare's out, and so is their best running back, who.
White.
Yeah, Zakondre White.
Opted.
He opted out.
I mean, I don't know why somebody would opt out. A third or fourth round guy in the NFL opts out. I don't understand that.
Yeah, I don't know, but they don't want to get injured. And I tell you what, I can halfway see some of that if you watch the Central Florida game, where the young man almost looked like he got paralyzed because of a shot with, and it was a clean play with 2 minutes left to go in the game. I mean, if you get injured like that, it could end your career. So there's definitely that out there. So I can see it from that perspective, but I'm also in camp of, you signed on to play, you should play.
Yeah. Well, man, have a great new year, and be listening to you tomorrow. You're going to be on tomorrow?
I am on with our best Gamecock coverage tomorrow across the hall. And
All
I'm
right,
doing a show
man.
on Friday. So we'll
all right.
have you then. All right.
All right. Thanks a lot, man.
All right. One more call before we go to break. And welcome into the program. Good afternoon.
Rob, it is Megan. How's it going?
Hey, you left the monastery. Did I get an ashtray or not?
I did. I'll tell you all about it later. It was a crazy time up
I'm
there.
sure it was. I hope it involves ladies of the night and white substances, but I don't know. We'll see.
Let's just say your chances are good on both of those. We'll leave it at that.
What do you have for the program today?
First of all, I enjoyed the interview there. North Carolina has always been an interesting football program to me. Let me ask you this. When you heard Mac Brown was taking that job and then where we are today, are you surprised at what he's been able to do? Now this season I know is a little bit of a failure, but as far as what he's done last year and then what he's done on the recruiting trail, are you as shocked by all that as I am?
I am shocked about like flipping Sam Howell from Florida State, because Sam Howell was going to go to Florida State and he got him to go to North Carolina. That was the first big Mac Brown get. And I mean, he is, in my opinion, he's done an amazing job. His recruiting class for next year, the recruiting class just wrapped up is just stupid for a guy that's in his 70s. To go out and be able to convince young men to come and play for him at that age, it's amazing. And I don't know how much longer he's got, but we did get to chat with him at ACC Kickoff. He is an outstanding coach and one of the true gentlemen of college football. So I'm surprised he's done as much as he has at the age that he is at, though. I do agree with you on that.
Yeah, when he took the job, I was kind of like, oh, God, I hate to see this. This is going to be ugly. It's going to be a 4-and-out or 3-and-out, type deal, and it's going to tarnish his legacy. But he's done I've been surprised, really surprised. But I will tell you this: I haven't been able to catch most of the show here in recent days, but I did catch Hollywood's call. I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before, but he is so appropriately named for someone who lives in the world of make-believe. It's unbelievable. The guy picked against Georgia, who wound up going 12-0 in a regular season every single game, finally got one right. And that's all he points to.
He was 1 for 13, sir. Be nice.
Yes, he was. He was 1 for 13. And then when you brought up any of those 13, he said, oh, that's in the past. What does that matter? So, hey, the guy, he's optimistic in his views. Let's just say that. I do admire that, the ability to bounce back from being incorrect so often. Hey, I did want to bring up what I think is going to happen at the University of Florida.
Sure.
Why do kids transfer in general, Rob?
Playing time is
playing
probably
time.
one of the biggest ones.
Yes, playing time. And who has more to offer as far as a big time program than Florida right now for playing time? So, and I say that in all seriousness. Name me a position that is absolutely locked down at Florida. There are none.
Well, let's just be honest. Dan Mullen left them as a gong show. I mean,
Right.
their talent level with everyone that's transferred out from what I've seen from afar. I mean, I venture to say that Mizzou right now has more talent on their roster than Florida does. I'll go toe to toe with you on that. So
I believe that 100%, Rob. And first of all, I'm very uncomfortable agreeing with you on so many points, but
I can't help that you've been listening to the program and you're finally starting to think for yourself. I mean, you can thank me for that. I'll send you my PayPal and you can pay me for that, but go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead and hold your breath on that. But no, what you're going to, my prediction here is what you're going to start hearing when Florida lands a ton of top talent through the transfer portal is you're going to hear what a genius this new coach is. And I do respect the new coach. I think he's going to be good, but they're going to jump. They're going to be, turning backflips in Gainesville about what kind of a genius. No, you have playing time. That's what the transfer portal is there for, and he's going to tear it up. I'm sure he is, but it's not what it's going to look like. Is what I'm telling you. That's not the way you want to build a program. Let's just say that.
Well, that's how they. I mean, not necessarily through the through transfers and everything else, but let's be honest. They hit a home run. Urban Meyer did with Tim Tebow, and then he had a bunch of savages that were playing for him. I mean, people seem to kind of step away from that, but I mean, if we're being completely honest, it was Tim Tebow and a bunch of felons. That's what he had out there.
I was going to say savage is probably a very accurate term for some of those players.
Yeah. Documented savagery. It's out there.
Yeah.
So.
And there was at least one player actually off that team who didn't get charged with murder until like 4 years after his wife disappeared.
I mean,
I forgot who that player was.
I got Tim Tebow, and that's it. That's the only one that you could sit down and have a beer with, and he wouldn't have a beer with you because I'm sure he doesn't drink. But the rest of them are like, don't need any of that.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I got to run, Rob. Enjoy the show, man.
Thanks a lot, man. Have a great day. All right, there you go. Beg and Megan joining us here on the program. We've got to take a break here in a moment. When we come back, I will give you my predictions for the Clemson matchup this afternoon. We're like, 2.5 hours away from game time there. Actually, 2 hours away from game time. Kickoffs at 5:45 today. And tomorrow, don't forget, I will be on our best Gamecock coverage tomorrow, right across the hall on WVOC, our sister station. Be sure to check us out there. We're streaming live on the WVOC Facebook and Twitter page. Go and check that out. We've got the best pre- and post-game coverage that you could possibly find. If you are a fan of South Carolina, we will tell you everything that you need to know before the game, including everything you need to know after the game. So we'll get into all of that tomorrow, as I will be off the air here on Fox Sports Radio and on the air across the hall with our sister station, 103.5 FM WVOC. Be sure to check us out there. Post-game show with myself, Justin Hall, and Tim Frisbee. It's going to be a great show. Love the post-game interaction. It's the most raw interaction ever because you've been in an up and down portion of a game, and then all of a sudden it's like, man, I got to call and get how I feel out there. Yeah, we've got that for you on the fifth quarter post-game show tomorrow. Brandon says, rest in peace to the great John Madden. What a legend. Yeah, growing up, John Madden, Pat Summerall, I just remember that. That's like one of the voices of your childhood right there with Skip Carey for me. Love that too. So sad to hear the passing of John Madden, who passed away unexpectedly yesterday at the age of 85. Commissioner Roger Goodell put out a statement saying there's only be one John Madden. He is absolutely correct. John Madden was one of the more interesting characters as far as broadcasters go. So rest in peace, Mr. Madden. As always, you've deserved it, sir. You deserve to rest easy with everything that you put out there. All right, so we come back. We'll give you predictions for the Cheez-It Bowl. What a silly name for a bowl. The Cheez-It Bowl. And tomorrow's Duke's Mayonnaise Bowl. We just need a ketchup bowl now, and we'll be good to go. More of the rundown when we come back. This is Fox Sports Radio 1400. Hollywood special, man.
There's no shortage of food at Casey's Fireworks. Casey's is open all year round and has overstocked their shelves with the largest selection ever of pops, whizzers, whistlers. And Casey's is stocked floor to ceiling with food.
Good point, Jimmy.
Ring in the new year with wow. Casey's Fireworks featuring wall-to-wall savings open all year round only on Rosewood Drive. Find money-saving coupons online at Casey'sFireworks.com.
Are you shopping for a new home? With a zero closing cost mortgage from Cap Center, you can save thousands of dollars compared to other lenders.
This is my third time with Cap Center. Always improving payments experience. I can't understand why anyone would use it when it comes to pay closing costs.
Cap your home buying costs. Visit CapCenter.com. Equal housing lender. Visit CapCenter.com for rate savings and offer limitations. This ad contains real-time feedback posted by actors. NMLS ID 67717. NMLSConsumerAccess.org.
Give me a 2022 Kia Soul with all the options on the double. Sir, yes, sir. That's right. Galliana Kia on Keystone is taking orders. Some dealers will only sell what they have available. But at Galliana Kia on Keystone, you can order exactly what you want, just how you want it.
The South Carolina game's hard to pick. It really is, because I don't know who's going to be out there. You would be correct, Brandon. Jalen Foster, nobody thought he was going to be what he was supposed to be, and guy's a first-team All-American. Can't really say anything bad about him. I think he one point led the country in interceptions. Solid. Solid's the best word I can come up with.
Get ready to celebrate the year in music. We came here to have a good time. 2022 iHeartRadio Music Awards.
Where the iHeartRadio app comes alive.
Coming back to Fox March 22nd.
Oh, man.
Live from Los Angeles.
iHeartRadio does their music awards a little bit differently.
Are you guys ready? Where your favorite artists will go home winners.
And the iHeartRadio Music Award goes to
our 2022 iHeartRadio Music Awards.
Hi, this is Dan Patrick, and here's what's trending from the iHeart Sports Network, presented by Mercedes-Benz. NC State will play the Holiday Bowl with the win, despite not being able to play. The Wolfpack was awarded the trophy this morning after UCLA backed out at the last minute.
I mean, I don't really know what we're going to have with South Carolina. I don't know.
Intelligence runs in the family. Innovation runs in the family. Extraordinary runs in the family. The 2021 Mercedes-Benz range of SUV. Every member is waiting to impress. Learn more.
What's the old term? Defense travels there, Lee. I think South Carolina's defense is better. So there's that. Final segment of the rundown this afternoon here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Of course, around the world on the iHeart Radio app. I got to play you this clip here from Coach Shane Beamer today, where he talked about COVID and how his program has gotten the bite of it. With I think 3 players are not going to be with the Gamecocks tomorrow. A couple of comments from Coach Shane Beamer here real quick before we go.
You know, we did have a couple positives, which is unfortunate. Nothing that's going to prevent us from playing in the game. And it's just it's a tough deal. You got We had a few positives. 0 symptoms from anyone. I'm just a head football coach here at South Carolina, so I'm sure no one really cares what I think. But it's just it's a disappointing deal because one of the positives was a senior walk-on that's getting ready to play in his last football game ever as a South Carolina Gamecock. Feels completely great, has these 0 symptoms, not a cough, not congestion, not a runny nose, nothing. And his college career ends with a phone call telling him that he just tested positive for COVID and that he's got to get in a car and drive back home yesterday afternoon. And every single one of the positives that we had yesterday, 0 symptoms at all. Felt great. Had great weeks of practice and all that as well. So certainly something that we're working through right now, but we did have some, but nothing that's going to affect our ability, to play in the game. Obviously, we're 24 hours out right now, and next man up.
There you go with Coach Shane Beamer. So I don't know who this guy is that is the senior. I have no clue. No clue who it is. Shane Beamer didn't tell us. So this game is really hard for me to figure out. I'm going to go with the assumption that Zeb Nolan is going to be your starting quarterback tomorrow. I don't know for sure or not. He said senior that, there you go. My watch is going off there. Senior that was a walk-on, etc., that is going to not play. Of course, Jalen Foster was a senior that walked on. He was in the Zoom meeting today, so I doubt it's going to be Jalen Foster. I don't know who's going to be the quarterback. Could it be Zeb Nolan? That's what we're going to go with. With that, Zeb Nolan needs to connect with Josh Vann with some of those big passes that they can moving the ball down the field. The secondary for North Carolina is not very good. Not very good. So there is the possibility that could happen. With this North Carolina defense, it's like a turnstile, in my opinion. They've given up a lot of points. So we'll see how that matchup goes. But if it's Colton Gauthier, we don't really know much about him either. So it's tough. It really is. Here's what I do know. South Carolina has a pretty good defense, but they do really well when when teams throw against them. If North Carolina lines up and runs the ball at South Carolina, they're going to be in the third and fourth quarter. The old D word is going to be a problem. That's depth. I think that's what's going to happen tomorrow with South Carolina. I've got North Carolina pulling away for a 27-13 win over South Carolina. And I just don't think the Gamecocks have enough horses yet. And it's just, as honest as I can be with you on that front, they just don't have enough. So I'd feel a little bit better if I knew for sure that who was out tomorrow, but I don't know. So I'm going with what I sort of know. So there you go with that. 27-13 is how I feel about that game tomorrow. Also, we've got the Cheez-It Bowl today, and that game kicks off in a little over 2 hours. And the big thing with that, and I wrote in my notes here, I want to make sure that because I want to make sure that I had it right. What did I write? Oh my goodness. Okay. Clemson, of course, is trying to win 10 games for a school record 11th consecutive season. Be only the third program in history to ever post 11 consecutive 10-win seasons, joining Florida State and Alabama. They'd be the first school to win 10 games in 11 seasons as a member of the ACC, as only the final 9 of Florida State's 14 straight 10-win seasons came during their tenure in the ACC. The big thing with this is that, oh my goodness, I can't find my full notes. I have to go by what I remember in my head. I like the Iowa State defense. They run basically 3 safeties out there, and they give you consistently different looks down the field. If I were coaching the Clemson offense this week, I would point blank say, look, we want DJ Uiagalelei to have the same kind of game that he had against South Carolina. meaning that if he throws for 100 yards, we're happy about that. That's it. I know that sounds kind of silly, but if they can keep Uyunglele from having to throw passes where he's going to end up putting balls where he doesn't quite know where they're going. And what I mean by that is that you've got a full receiving core that's not quite there yet, meaning a lot of them are either transferred out, COVID out, whatever. Of course, with EJ Williams being the latest, I don't feel very confident in the Clemson passing game. I do feel more confident in the Clemson running game with Will Shipley and Kobe Pace. And I think they're going to try to be a two-headed monster, and they're going to make it where Uyunglele has to throw simple passes just enough to keep the defense honest and to keep those safeties from being living in the backfield. It's pretty much what it's going to boil down to, in my opinion. That said, look for a game as far as receivers go. Bo Collins should have another good day there for the Tigers. He may be the one legitimate threat that Clemson has at wide receiver right now would be Bo Collins. So we'll see how that works out. Brandon says Clemson started playing better after the Pitt loss. Yeah, that's true. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. I don't know where else to go with that. I think that Clemson wins this game. It's going to be like an ugly, like 24-17 type matchup today with Clemson winning over Iowa State. Brandon says Nagata returns for Clemson. Yeah, but I'm in the camp of we've been waiting on Nagata to show out, and he just hasn't done it yet. So if it's not going to happen now, I don't know when it's going to happen, to be honest with you. Don't know when it's going to happen. So there's my two picks. Right now, there's a bowl game going on, the Pinstripe Bowl. Why they're playing a game at Yankee Stadium, I don't know. It's not like people from the Northeast are like, hey, we like college football. They don't care. They don't care. Why are they playing a game there? I don't know. There's nobody in the stands. Maryland is beating up on Virginia Tech right now, 24-10. They got to get a field goal as time expired there to head into the half. It looks like Maryland's kind of in control of that game, though Virginia Tech was down 21-3. Got a good quick touchdown drive there. We'll see how that works out for them. All right, tomorrow, as I said, I will be on the air with our best Gamecock coverage. So not on the air here, on the air across the hall. Find WVOC on Facebook or Twitter if you want to watch. And, of course, 103.5 FM on the iHeartRadio app if you would like to listen. So there's that. And, of course, don't forget Lawton Swan of Clemson Sports Talk. He is the czar of Clemson sports. Looking forward to catching his show today. As always, it's a wonderful program, and he'll have the keys.
Stop looking at me, Swan.
Right.
Stop looking at me, Swan.
All right. We know he's coming. He'll have everything you need to know about the Cheez-It Bowl. Probably while he eats Cheez-Its. I wouldn't be surprised by that. Anyway, Lawton Swan, Clemson Sports Talk is next. So make sure you check him out here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. And, of course, around the world on the iHeartRadio app. Blog posts are up at foxsportsradio1400.com. And I'm on Twitter at Rob Sounds Good. I've been popping some people on the snout here lately. We'll see how that goes. Lee says he's got North Carolina winning 28-17 tomorrow. Very interesting, sir. Good stuff there. Thank you guys for listening to the show. I will be on the air on Friday. New Year's Eve, we're doing a show. So recap of South Carolina, and we'll see if I have to moonwalk either one of my picks back. And we'll pick the national championship game, or the college football playoff games at 3 o'clock on Friday. More of the rundown Friday. Best Gamecock coverage tomorrow. This is Fox Sports Radio 1400. Yes, Brandon, we're doing a show tonight. Either I will be cursing and screaming, or Jackpot will be mad. One or the other. I don't know. Appreciate you guys, man. We'll see you later on.